This is Hey Look Over There, and this is my video on restoring the paint on my 1988 Eddie Bauer Edition Ford Bronco. It came black with the khaki trim on the bottom. The top was white when I bought it. I think it was originally khaki. It definitely was far from perfect when I got it, but I put a little bit of work into it, and this is what I did to fix it back up and make it look new again. I hope this video helps all you guys that are doing the same. So what's wrong with the Bronco? First of all, the paint on it has been baked by the sun over the last 20-30 years and needs to be replaced. Additionally, it's rusted in the 3 traditional locations you're going to find on Ford F-150s and Broncos, which is over the wheel wells and the dead center of the tailgate lower skin. So I'll have to get those pulled off and replaced as well. Alright, so the next problem I've ran into is I'm getting ready to weld this tailgate panel back on, and as you can see, there's glass underneath it. I don't think it's a good idea to weld over glass, so what I've done is I'm going to take the 2 leads off of my window motor, connecting to the positive negative of my little trickle charger, and it'll operate the window and start to send it out of the way. I'm getting ready to connect my positive and negative to my leads that are right over here, cameraman. So I've got my trickle charger plugged in. I can't remember which way makes it go up and which way makes it go down. So I'll just start connecting it, and if you watch, this will actually start to send it out like that. And now my panel is gone, or my glass is gone from underneath my panel. I can weld underneath it and not get any slag or anything on there. Thank you, cameraman. I'm prepping the structural part of the tailgate itself to get ready for the patch panel skin. Cleaned up just about everything I can. I don't want to cut too far deep into the metal, and in some places where nature cut into the metal deep enough for me, I'll just consider it structural rust, cover it up, spray it with some good rust reformer into reverse order, and it'll give me a few more years before I have to cut it off and maybe replace the whole tailgate altogether. So I've put the rust reformer on, and I've got a coat of black enamel on here as well. Makes it look nice, at least, so that I can cover it up and no one will ever see it until they need to replace it again. Not gonna fool myself. There's areas that are gonna require more than just sanding and painting, and I'm not going to fix those now because I plan on having this last for about 10-15 years, and probably if I keep it, I'll have to do a lot more work to get it back up and running. Now I'm going to have to sit down here and try to work on cleaning up the bottom half of it. Like I said, I'm not going to do too detailed of a job on it, but we'll see how it turns out. Lessons learned, segment number 1. So I finished welding and doing a good amount of grinding on the tailgate, and what I found out is I'm not very good at welding yet. So my first recommendation to people is that you find a place on your vehicle or some scrap metal where you can just practice. I got a little bit more gap here than I was hoping for, so I had to put some additional metal in to bridge that gap, and that of course turns it in from a bad job to a worse job. But my saving grace is this handy dandy panel goes right over the top of all of my shoddy welding and grinding. Something else that I forgot to mention is, as I was welding, I found out that my weld was causing a valley, and you probably can't tell it from that, but once I put a straight edge on there, you can see it really made a pretty deep valley there. And my suspicion is that as I was putting a little bit of weight on here holding my welder, I was pushing it down a little bit, tacking, and it would deflect just a little bit and then lock it into place. And then the next time I'd push down a little bit and it would deflect, probably just using a little bit of weight that was from my hand being on the panel itself. So note to you guys, try to not put much pressure on the panel that you're welding, and if you can avoid it,
or if you can, try to get something underneath it to keep it from wanting to bow down.
Backtracking on the tailgate, so when I used the hammer and dolly on the lower portion of it to try to get the skin to wrap around it, I used it wrong and put a bunch of dents in it. So this is what happens when you do that. You have to go back and skim coat it and sand some more. And then while I was at it, since this is the area that usually rusts right in the dead center of the tailgate itself, that's where it rusted out on me, I went ahead and I made 3 small indentions. I don't know if you can see it with my hand behind it. 1, 2, 3. And then I went in with my drill, handy dandy drill, stuck it right in there, made me 3 little wheat holes. 1, 2, 3. So that hopefully any water that gets trapped in the tailgate will make its way out of the tailgate before it starts to rust it away again. I hope it works. Been working on the tailgate, getting it put back on there, and I started to have issues with alignment, and so I started to Google it and YouTube it and didn't find a satisfactory tutorial on it, so I'll try to give you one myself. So what I'm finding out is these hinge bolts that are behind the tailgates on both sides, those are what is going to give you your vertical alignment. So what's important is get it up there, don't slam it on there, but just lift up, tighten these bolts, come over, or one of the bolts, come over on this side, lift up, tighten this bolt, come back over, loosen it, tighten it, and it'll get back up until your body panel is in alignment on both sides. It takes a little bit of finagling, but you can do it. And then I thought I'd have to worry about the hinges, the hinge bolts on the bottom. I thought I'd have to pull the tailgate open and adjust them from that way, but like a dummy, I did it the hard way the first time. You can access them from underneath the easy way if you had a little bit more brains than me. So you can do that, and that's what's going to allow you to adjust it horizontally, in and out, in and out, in and out. When I first put it on there, there's a weather sill on the back, and I could see daylight, and obviously it gets pitch black when I look over there now. So I just pushed up against it, the bottom of the panel real hard when I tightened the bolts, and it snugged it up. So now it's on there, and I did that on both sides. It opens pretty smoothly now that it's got a lot of more lubricant and fresh paint on the inside, so it's operating a lot better. Sounds pretty good. And one thing that I did find is on this side, the tailgate was sunken in more, which it's in alignment now, than the other side. And that's just simple as adjusting the striker. So I didn't notice it when I had it on there before, but now you can see where I've painted. You can see just a little bit of exposed paint, so I just had to nudge it out just a little bit. So that's all it took to get my tailgate reinstalled and aligned properly so it shuts and is real secure when it's closed. I apologize for not saying this the first time, but not only do these lower bolts on the bottom side of the tailgate adjust your in and out, they also are what's responsible for adjusting your left and right. So after installing it once, and it was almost all the way over on the passenger side, pushing it back, it was almost all the way over. I ended up having to go through and just take, I'm going to call it a feeler gauge, but it's a wrench. It just happens to be a 3/8 inch in case it works for you guys, and I can barely get it in there between the two body panels. So that's my width between the two. Come over to this side, I can barely get it in there. I can't actually get it in there right now, but when I was opening it, I would use this to tell me if I was too far on one side, and I could use it as a brake. So I'd put it on this side, jerk the tailgate over, and it would hit this to slow it down and stop it, because it's hard to control it from wanting to jerk all the way, because that sucker's heavy. I don't know if it's 100 pounds, but it sure feels like it when you're hauling it around. But just another little something for you guys to think about.